So, was the Cleveland Browns exposed with their defense this past Sunday? Are the Chiefs starting to make their mark to become the first team to win 3 straight Super Bowls? And was this past Monday a bad game, or maybe even worse, a bad sign for the New York Jets? We're going to try to find those answers and many more as we get you ready for week 2 of NFL action and week 2 of fantasy action. That's why we're all here. It's another edition of Fantasy Football Fever, which starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Fever. It is Tuesday night, September 10th, 2024. Wherever, whenever, and however you're watching, we thank you for joining us. Thanks for making us part of your week. Of course, my name is Timothy McClellan. Over here is our league commissioner, Mr. John Natali. How you doing, sir?
Oh, doing great.
And right down here below me, of course, the host of his podcast, Hooked on Sports, Mr. John Flynn, who happens to be muted.
Not muted anymore.
All right, there he is. So how you guys doing?
Yeah, not too bad.
I'm doing good. So the second straight year I attend a Giants game. The second straight year that I go to a Giants game where Daniel Jones throws a pick six and the Giants do not score a touchdown.
Oh, jeez.
So they lost by 21 points in the game I went to last year. They lost by 22 points this time.
Ugh.
So
I don't think. I don't know if there's a trend going on here, but hey, it's your prerogative. You do what you want to do. You can keep going to the games. I ain't gonna say nothing.
Yeah. So I mean, things are going pretty well in New York, Timmy. I'm just making sure we know that. I just want to know that all is well in New York.
Okay, all is good in the Empire State. So I guess that's all right. So guys, what y'all think of the games from last week? Anything stand out?
Because you had a lot of competitive games that for multiple teams that you had games in hand, which basically.
I think
I was stuck. Jack. You happy now?
We got you now.
Yeah, so I mean, because I think there were a lot of double-digit comebacks. So, over the week, I was stunned that the Jaguars lost that game to Miami. That everything was Jacksonville was doing everything right, but then before Travis Etienne's costly fumble, which recovered by the Dolphins for a touchback, that turned that game around, and then boom, Tua finds Tyreek Hill for an 80-yard touchdown. The Titans had a 17-zip lead, and they managed to lose the game despite not allowing the defense allowing a touchdown on defense. That was disappointing from Tennessee, and then I think the other one was that the Bills were able to win. The Cardinals were up 17-3 early, and then Josh Allen took over the game from there. It basically confirmed everything I thought about both of those teams going into the season. So I thought that was wild. We almost had a fourth when in the Rams-Lions game on Sunday night. The Rams were down 17-3. and then Nacua gets hurt. Then the Rams come back, tie, and then take the lead. Then the Lions go down, tie the game on a field goal to send the game to overtime, and then the best offensive line in football powers the Lions to a Week 1 win against a very well coached team.
Yeah, some very good stories there. Unfortunately, I was not able to watch any of the Cowboys game against the Browns because for the first part of the game, I was still at work. Then at 5 o'clock, I left work and I had to help a friend run some errands, so I missed the whole game. Of course, I was listening to it on the official Dallas Cowboys app, so there's some good stuff there. The offensive line, I thought played pretty well. I give them a B plus.
Yeah, I thought they held up pretty well.
Yeah, especially with the two rookies, Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe holding their own right there. And of course, the play of the game, of course, was the 60-yard punt return for touchdown by Cavante Turpin, his first return of his NFL career, which is actually kind of nice. So that was pretty well for me. So
hang on a second. I'm going to be logged out shortly.
gotta do a reboot or?
Yeah, it's going to be I'll be rebooting shortly, so I'm going to go back to my phone for now before I get back up and running. But that's fine for now. There we go.
Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I think the slides that I see here was for last week. Okay, so here goes there. Yeah, we were just about to go into our week 1 results from our fantasy league from last week.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, there he is.
I'm seeing double look here on the screen twice.
Yeah, I know because I'm waiting for my computer to totally shut down. But anyway, so I think we should. So I think while we're doing this, I think we should go over some of the things that we saw in week 1 of the NFL, and I think the first game I thought was pretty eye-opening because of the game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs were able to win 27-20 because you got 291 yards passing and a touchdown pass for Patrick Mahomes. You had Xavier Worthy put up 2 touchdowns in his NFL debut. I was very surprised that they used that they used Worthy in those situations, and credit for him, he pretty much maximized his fantasy production. I think he had 20.9 fantasy points in our league this week. So I was pretty impressed on him. I think the other thing I was also taken aback by was the usage of the tight ends for the Baltimore Ravens because I think conventional wisdom was to say that Isaiah Likely was going to take a step back this season after seeing the return of Mark Andrews, but that did not happen at least on Thursday night. Isaiah Likely had 9 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown, and it could have been 2 if his toe didn't step out of bounds on the last play of the game. Meanwhile, Mark Andrews is about I think Isaiah Likely put up more than 20 close to 25 points in fantasy, which was number 1 out of all tight ends in fantasy last week. And meanwhile, Mark Andrews only had a couple of catches. So I was very, very much taken aback by that. I thought Lamar Jackson was excellent. He had 122 rushing yards. He had a gorgeous touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely in the earlier in the fourth quarter. I think a 49-yard touchdown to cut the deficit. cut the deficit in half. So I thought that was a pretty inspiring. But see, so I thought, you look at that. Another thing I was taken aback by was the usage of the running backs, and there were a lot of second and third down situations where Justice Hill was being used out of the backfield instead of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry did not play that much on Thursday night, so I very much have questions for that, and I'm sure they're gonna use Derrick Henry more, because I think with their matchup against the Raiders on Sunday, I think it's gonna allow them to use him more. So what did you guys look at in terms of fantasy for that game?
I don't know of anything about that particular game, but one statistic that really stood out for me was Joe Mixon getting 159 rushing yards in the Texans' win over the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you still got some juice left in the tank, I got to tell you.
Yeah, Joe Mixon was excellent for the Texans, and him being upgraded over Devin Singletary at the running back position, I having him there alongside what the Texans already have, and Stephon Diggs caught both touchdown passes that C.J. Stroud threw on Sunday in a rousing victory over the Colts, and C.J. Stroud was great. I thought Anthony Richardson made some of the best plays by a quarterback on Sunday. Did you see all those gorgeous deep balls to Alec Pierce and company? Whew, that was something else.
Oh, it was. It was, I believe, 125 receiving yards for Alec Pierce. Tip my hat to him. Of course, I'm not wearing a hat tonight.
Yeah, I think Alec Pierce is going to be someone that a lot of people are going to be picking up in fantasy in the coming weeks, based upon his performance on Sunday. So we had that game. So I would go to the Friday night game between the Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. A couple of things stood out to me. With the Eagles, Saquon Barkley made his Eagles debut. He had 126 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns, including a receiving touchdown. So I thought he was fantastic. And look, Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to finish at worst a top six in fantasy at the running back position when we get to the end of the season.
Oh yeah. I see some other pretty big numbers here on this list here as we're going through our recaps. How about Ramondre Stevenson, 120 rushing yards as the Patriots upend the Bills 16-10. That was my lock of the week, and I just blew it right there.
Yeah, I mean that was an atrocious performance by Cincinnati, and yes, I think conventional wisdom was to say that the Patriots were going to be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the NFL, but you had all the outside noise about Jamar Chase, and in a game where the Bengals scored 10 points, I think you'll gladly take 12 points from Jamar Chase. Because Jamar Chase wasn't horrendous, which I feared would happen with the contract dispute. But I thought he was okay. But then the rest of the team, especially offensively, they looked like double agents out there. So that was a very disappointing loss for Cincinnati. Oh, and by the way, they have to go to Arrowhead on Sunday. To face the two-time defending Super Bowl champions in front of a national audience. That's going to be a problem as well. So I think that there are a lot of concerns now for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they can ease those concerns if they go into Burrowhead as Bengals fans like to call them, and beat the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. That would be incredibly enticing. So I think you have that to be looking at from that perspective. Also, I wanted to one other note about the game between the Eagles and the Packers. Jaden Reed led. I'm pretty sure he led all fantasy players this week in wide receiver production, and 4 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown, which I thought was interesting. So they're looking at Jaden Reed maybe as their deep ball guy, and I think it showed a little bit of that on Friday night down in Brazil.
Yeah, I think I may want to check the waiver wires as sure as some of you might want to. Maybe look in on Jaden Reed.
Yeah,
That's a possible great weapon.
And also, Jaden Reed had a 33-yard rushing touchdown to go along with his receiving production. So I think that was a very encouraging sign for Jaden Reed. In terms of how the other receivers did, because when we talked about the Packers over the summer, we were looking at who's going to be the go-to receiver for Matt LaFleur and company. So we have Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Dontavian Wicks. So Jaden Reed had 6 targets, 4 receptions. Romeo Doubs had 7 targets with 4 receptions. Christian Watson had 5 targets, 3 catches, only 13 yards, but a touchdown. And then Dontavian Wicks, 3 targets, 0 catches. It feels like they're going to be relying on Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed as their go-to receivers. So I think their stocks, especially Jaden Reed's, went way up after the game on Friday.
Another big number I see. 338 passing yards for Tua Tagovailoa, leading the Dolphins to a 20-17 victory over their in-state rivals, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Because I mean, he had to throw the ball a lot because the Dolphins were trailing for most of the game, and they didn't take a lead until Jason Sanders kicked the game-winning field goal as time expired in that game. So I thought that was encouraging on a lot of different levels for that. Other games of note, we have the game I went to, the Vikings taking down the Giants 28-6. Some notes on both teams. Aaron Jones had 94 rushing yards and a touchdown, because I have Aaron Jones in one of my leagues. So that was good for that particular fantasy league. Although I lost in that was the one league I lost in throughout the course of the game. So Justin Jefferson, he went crazy the last 2 season openers. Not as much on Sunday. He only had 4 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown, including a 44-yard pass from Sam Darnold, who by the way was excellent for Minnesota. That he was making all of his throws, and he did have 1 interception, and that was off a tip from Dexter Lawrence. But in terms of the usage of the Giants receivers, so Malik Neighbors led all of the first round rookies with 5 catches and 66 yards on 7 targets. Meanwhile, Wan'Dale Robinson had 12 targets on Sunday and 6 receptions.
Another interesting name to look up.
Yeah, and also another interesting dynamic for the Giants was the usage of their tight ends in the passing game, and I think that wanted to see how they were going to use them, but So, but Daniel Bellinger had one target, and that was on the drive after the Vikings lost that fumble in the first quarter. So, but Theo Johnson had 4 targets after that, while Daniel Bellinger didn't have any. So, I think the takeaway from that is that it's going to be clear that if there's a Giants tight end to look at in fantasy, it's absolutely going to be Theo Johnson, and I would not be surprised if by the end of the season we're looking at Theo Johnson as a potential tight end option down the stretch of the season, especially in bigger leagues like 14 or 16 teams. So that was where the logistics of the Vikings and the Giants. We're looking at the Titans. We're looking at the Titans and the Chicago Bears here. I'm going to pull that game up. Tony Pollard is clearly RB1 for Tennessee. That Pollard is going to be heavily used on early downs. He's going to, but on third downs, the primary back is going to be Tyjae Spears. So that's the way it's going to work. That they're going to look at Tyjae Spears, who had 4 targets all on third downs, but only four rushes, while Tony Pollard had 16 carries, while Tony Pollard 16 carries and 4 targets. So they're pretty much split up in terms of the passing game usage, but in terms of who's going to be the bellwether for the Titans backfield, is going to be Tony Pollard going forward.
Nice. And one more thing I want to get your opinion on. Another the only other 300 passing yard game I saw, the Sunday night game, Matthew Stafford with 317 yards in their overtime win against the Rams. I saw the last few minutes of the regulation and I saw overtime. That was incredible. I loved it.
Yeah, but also think about what the script of the game was. Because the Rams were trailing for much of that game, and so they needed to use to carry the arm of Matthew Stafford, and they only had 23 carries and 48 passes. And remember, this was after, and this was a game where Puka Nacua got hurt. He suffered, he aggravated the knee injury that he suffered during training camp. The Rams put him on injured reserve. We'll get into that as we look at the week 2 games in a little bit. But Cooper Kupp had 21 targets on Sunday night, and so when Nacua went down, Cooper Kupp stepped up. He made a lot of big catches. The route running was excellent. The play calling on the 2 touchdown drives, I thought was excellent and vintage Sean McVay. And then after that, you had Demarcus Robinson with 7 targets and Tyler Johnson with 7. Colby Parkinson had 5 because you're looking at a replacement for Tyler Higbee on that number. So you have that. Other takeaways from that Sunday night game. So I think we focused a lot on the Rams passing attack. So, but we also wanted to see what the running back situation was going to be like, because I was curious about that when we were looking at the Blake Corum dynamic with this. Blake Corum did not play a single snap on offense on Sunday night. Kyrie Williams played 71 snaps while Ronnie Rivers only played 2, only played 7. So I thought that was pretty telling. Kyrie Williams, by the way, 18 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown, and 3 receptions. So he was a little below what his projected number was. also in terms of the Lions, and I thought the Lions had an interesting dynamic too, because so let's do both. Let's do the target distribution list first, and then then look at the carries. So Amon St. Brown had 6 targets, but only came up with 3 receptions for 13 yards. So I'm sure that's going to change on Sunday to get him the ball. Jameson Williams had 9 targets, 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown, including a 52-yarder. With that, and Jameson Williams stepped up, had the best game of his young NFL career. But now in terms of how they distribute the rushing attack, and I thought this was interesting too, because in the game, both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery each played around 30 snaps out of the 61 they had, and David Montgomery had 17 carries. Much of that was in overtime when the Lions were just bullying the Aaron Donald-less Rams defensive line around, and then Jahmyr Gibbs had 11 carries, but each of them ran for touchdowns. So that was encouraging. Jahmyr Gibbs had 6 targets and 4 receptions. So I think you still want to make sure that Jahmyr Gibbs is the Lions' RB1 in fantasy going forward. So let's see. Let's go back to more of the 1:00 games. We did the Titans and the Bears. We did the Saints and the Panthers. So that was a drubbing. The Saints demolished the Panthers 47-10, which was a bloodbath. And Bryce Young, 2 interceptions, 161 yards passing, a QBR of 10.5, which is pretty bad. He got benched late in that game. In terms of the targets, the distribution, it's pretty spread out. Xavier Legette, the Panthers' first-round pick, had 4 led the way with 7 targets and 4 receptions. Adam Thielen had 4 targets, 3 receptions. Jonathan Mingo, 5 targets, 2 receptions, and Deontay Johnson, 6 targets and 2 receptions.
Very, very interesting numbers right there.
Yep. So that was that game. Let's do the Steelers and the Falcons, because this was one that I was stunned by that. Credit Natali for picking the Steelers to win that game. That
defense. It was that defense. I called it.
To be fair, at the time we were picking last week, I didn't know that what was it, that Justin Fields was going to start. I would have handicapped that game a lot differently had we known he'd be starting, and then I would have picked a lot closer game than would have indicated. But anyway, let's go to. Let's go to that game, because you had questions about how the Falcons were going to distribute the ball and all that. It said that Bijan Robinson was on the field for more than 85% of the snaps. He had it said that he had 18 carries for 68 yards. So what didn't get much traction on the ground. In terms of the distribution, to Raymond McLeod led the way with 7 targets and 4 receptions. Bijan Robinson caught all 5 of his targets. Kyle Pitts caught all 3 of his targets, including the touchdown. And as crazy as it sounds, Kyle Pitts was I'm pretty sure he was the number 2 or number 3 tight end in fantasy, depending on scoring and all that. But the big story, fantasy story, was that Chris Boswell kicked 6 field goals in that game, including 3 of more than 50 yards.
Well, he's got a very good leg. He has to go right up there with Justin Tucker and Brandon Aubrey as some of the best kickers in the league right there.
So we'll get into the guy I stole from you at the end of the draft in a little bit with Brandon Aubrey. And I knew I was going to get a reaction from Timmy on draft night.
Right.
So we did that. Let's do other things about the Jaguars and the Dolphins. Let's go to that because I think we're going to have an interesting dynamic throughout the season about Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne because because Tank Bigsby had 12 carries for 73 yards while Travis Etienne had 12 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown. So Etienne's snap count has shrunk a little bit from where he was last year. Evan Ingram's target share also was down a little bit as well. He played 36, a little less than 75% of the snaps. So there were only 19 targets in this game for Jacksonville, and leading the way with Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram each had 4 targets. Brian Thomas had the lone touchdown, so where he just beat the recently extended Jalen Ramsey. So on a cutback route. So we have that. When it comes to the Dolphins, that Tyreek Hill had 12 targets. Devon Achane had 7 targets, and he caught all of them for 76 yards. So it's going to be clear that Achane is gonna give you a lot of value in terms of the pass and the run. And Achane also led the way in terms of carries with 10 carries for 24, only for 24 yards, but he did have a touchdown in that game on Sunday. In term, and also Jalen Waddle had 5 targets. He caught them all. We have 409 yards, including a 63-yard pass in that game.
You mentioned Jalen Waddle. What was it? 105 receptions, 109 yards, 63. 63 is the longest.
Yeah, including a 63-yarder. And he caught all 5 of his targets. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think they're going to target Jalen Waddle a lot against Buffalo on Thursday night. So I think Jalen Waddle owners should be optimistic heading into Thursday. Heading into that game. Other things with the Texans and Colts, I'm going to go over some of the performances. Nico Collins 8 targets, 6 receptions. Tank Dell 7 targets, 3 receptions. Stephon Diggs 6 targets, all 6 of them caught, including 2 for touchdowns. So you have that. Joe Mixon was a bellwether, as mentioned, had 30 of the 40 team carries for 159 yards and a touchdown. From the Colts' perspective, Richardson 9 of 19, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Alec Pierce 125 yards and a touchdown on all 3 of his targets. And Michael Pittman Jr. had 8 targets and 4 receptions. So I don't think Michael Pittman Jr. only should be discouraged about the underperformance on target reception comparison on from Sunday. I think he should be just fine, and he should be a solid WR lower in WR1 in 12 and 14 team leagues. So let's also punch the numbers on the 4 o'clock games for a quick second here. So let's go to the Chargers and the Raiders. So I think the big question in fantasy from the Chargers perspective was how were they going to use J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and look, and J.K. Dobbins, I think he's going to be the clear running back number 1 going forward because he had an excellent game. 10 carries, 135 yards, including a touchdown and a 61-yard run, which was the longest rushing play the Chargers have had in a while because the Chargers wanted to be more physical. I think that's that was Jim Harbaugh's identity with the 49ers and with the championship last year he had at Michigan. So Lad McConkey, do you remember me talking about Lad McConkey throughout the offseason and how he was gonna be someone to watch?
I see that he did quite well there.
Yep, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 39 yards, and a touchdown, which was great. Quentin Johnson had 5 targets, 3 receptions. Hayden Hurst, 3 targets, 2 receptions. That's what we have from a Chargers perspective. J.K. Dobbins actually played more snaps than Gus Edwards, and so I think you have that. In terms of what the Raiders what the Raiders did, so they had 31 targets and 19 carries, and Zamir White led the way in terms of the rushing attack, but he only had 13 carries for 44 yards and only 2 receptions and 2 yards. So he was not. He did not lead the Raiders in terms. He did lead the Raiders in terms of production, but Alexander Mattison played 36 snaps in the backfield as compared to Zamir White's 23. So I think. So I think you might be looking at Alexander Mattison, who, by the way, had 4 receptions and a touchdown with 43 yards receiving. So Alexander Mattison scored more as a running back than did Zamir White. And another question was for the Raiders was going to be about Brock Bowers in his NFL debut. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions for 58 yards. So I think he was off to a pretty good start. You'd say I think he's going to be a big part of the Raiders' passing attack this season. So I think he's going to be going to be there on that. Let's go to Denver and Seattle, a game that Seattle won by 6 points. Let's in terms of what Bo Nix was, he threw a couple of picks. Averaged only 3.3 yards per attempt per passing attempt. So and 42 targets, which was one of the high one. I think it was the second most in the league this week. Cortland Sutton had 12 targets but only 4 receptions. Josh Reynolds 8 targets, 5 catches. Devon Vale had 8 targets and 8 receptions. Let's say in terms of how they utilized the halfbacks in terms of carries, they were pretty even. So Jaleel McLaughlin had 9 carries. McLaughlin had 10 carries, while Javonte Williams, who was supposedly number 1 on a lot of people's charts, only had 8 carries. So I think you might see a little bit of Jaleel McLaughlin. And also another note, Audrey Estime had 2 carries for 14 yards. I know I mentioned Audrey Estimate a couple of times during the offseason, but that was that. In terms of the Cowboys and the Browns, we're going to look at that game right now.
Oh yeah.
So I think so. The question was, how is the Cowboys backfield going to hold up? Well, Zeke Elliott had 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown in his return to the Cowboys lineup. Rico Dowdle had 8 carries, and CeeDee Lamb had 3 carries from the backfield. In terms of receiving, CeeDee Lamb led the way with both 10 targets and 5 receptions and 61 yards. Brandon Cook, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. So I think it's good news for that. Jake Ferguson, who had to leave the game, I think because of an injury, had 5 targets, 3 receptions for 15 yards in the limited time that he had. But no other tight end was targeted on Sunday by Dak Prescott. And then in terms of the Buccaneers and the Commanders, Baker Mayfield was fantastic on Sunday. 24 of 30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which I thought was very impressive. But I think you can look at and make a part of what the Bucs want to do offensively, and about how vulnerable Washington's defense still is, even though they have a defensive coach to be their head coach. In terms of Tampa's target shares, Chris Godwin caught all 8 of his targets for a touchdown. Mike Evans had 5 receptions for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, a 32-yard touchdown pass for his only reception on 3 targets. And then in terms of the rushing, in terms of the backfield production, you had Rashad Wright and Bucky Irving, who might be intriguing as potential bench options. So I'll go to both of those. Rashad White had 15 carries for just 31 yards, but 6 receptions for 75 yards. So the PPR people, I think if I'm doing the math correctly, he got 16.5 points in fantasy in PPR leagues yesterday. So I think we went through that, and then Jaden Daniels, I thought he looked really good in his debut. Not necessarily in the passing attack, 17 of 24, 184 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So, but as a rusher, 16 carries, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So it's given 28 points in fantasy, while Brian Robinson had a touchdown on 12 carries and 40 yards and 3 receptions for 49 yards on 4 targets. Austin Eckler had only 2 carries on Sunday, which I think is telling, and but 4 receptions for 52 yards. So that's why Austin Eckler went so late this year in drafts after being basically the consensus number one choice in fantasy drafts a year ago.
Right.
So we talked about Rams Lions, and the last game we're going to discuss before we pull up our league results is the Jets and the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh yeah.
Night. But I think that the big story, we'll get to Christian McCaffrey and his availability in a little bit, but can we say Jordan Mason take a bow? He was unbelievable on Monday night. 28 carries, 147 yards, a touchdown, 5.3 yards per carry. He was phenomenal. And he picked up fantasy owners a lot of points. Yes. So I think if I do my math correctly, let's see, 20.7, yeah, about over 20, like close to 22 points based off of Monday night's performance. So it's which was basically what the projections were for Christian McCaffrey in this game.
Oh yeah.
So he stepped up in a monster way for the 49ers. In terms of how the Niners distributed their passing, Deebo Samuel um, had 13 touches, 8 carries, 5 receptions, a rushing touchdown, 54 yards. He had 77 all-purpose yards on that. Jawan Jennings had caught all 5 of his targets. George Kittle, 4 catches, 40 yards. Brandon Ayuk, in his first game since that contract extension, 2 receptions for 28 yards. But I think the big fantasy story for that was that Jake Moody was simply unreal. He kicked 6 field goals, made all 6 of his field goals, scored 26 points in fantasy, and that's how David was somehow able to stun you in fantasy last night. So then in terms of the Jets, I mean, so the Jets had the Jets had 18 carries. Brees Hall had 16 of them, ran for 54 yards and a touchdown. In terms of the receiving, Alan Lazard, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Garrett Wilson had 11 targets, 6 receptions for 60 yards.
Yeah.
So I think so those were the big stories there. So
yeah. So Flynn, I just gotta get your reaction on this one, or your opinion. As I asked earlier, was this game just a bad game or a bad sign for the Jets?
I mean, I think in terms of the short term, no, because the quarterbacks they're facing the next 3 weeks are Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, and Bo Nix. So I think they should those games should all be wins. So, but yeah, in terms of some smart people thinking that the Jets were going to go to the Super Bowl, I never took the cheese on that, and performances like a performance like the one we saw last night, where the Jets had to prove that they belong with the San Francisco 49ers to be on that top tier of teams. They did not prove a lot of the skeptics wrong, and Aaron Rodgers looked rusty. The play calling was absurd. The decision making was horrible. The lack of execution on offense, the bad tackling on defense, a lot of those things were coaching, and which is why I begged the Jets to fire Robert Saleh after last season, and they didn't do it because they wanted they had to protect Aaron Rodgers.
So that's basically a roundup to everything that happened in week 1 in the NFL. Now we have to have a little roundup for our week 1 in our fantasy league.
Yeah, and I think before we did that, there was some hot topics that we needed to discuss. And I think and Tim, so I want to get your reaction because you're a Cowboys fan. So I we got a notification around 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I was in the parking lot at MetLife Stadium with getting ready to go in. I had a friend. The friend who I attended the game with was asking about whether or not Jamar Chase was going to be active, and I told her it was. I told her very, very significant news, but she thought because it's usually around that time where the teams start posting the actives and inactives. And then I look and see that Dak Prescott got paid 4 years, $240 million, $231 million guaranteed, which I thought was crazy. So as a Cowboy fan, what do you think?
Well, when I was looking at the numbers on that contract, it it was kind of steep in my opinion. I mean, that's a lot of money, and it kind of took me back about a few years ago. Uh, this has been now, I want to say 9 or so years ago, when Tony Romo got a huge contract extension, and he got more guaranteed money than Joe Flacco, who was quarterback in the Ravens at the time. And then all of a sudden, what happened the very next year? Romo goes down with an injury. And then here comes his backup quarterback, who at that time, his backup was Dak Prescott, comes in, takes over, and that was the end of Tony Romo's career in Dallas and his career in the NFL, which led to him being signed by CBS Sports to team up with Jim Nantz. So I thought it was kind of steep. But like I said, he is great in the regular season. 73-41, I think. 73-41 in the regular season, but it's this playoff record, 2-5 in the playoffs. That always gives me cause to pause.
So, we are both seeing it the exact same way. But I think the Cowboys, and remember, Jerry Jones is a business guy in all this. So he has a business tycoon, one of the one of the great business tycoons in the sports business industry, but as a decision maker, you have to weigh between what happens if Dak walks. Like what are the alternatives? And they came to the conclusion that the alternatives were frightening without Dak. And now, assuming Dak plays out the rest of his contract, he's going to be the longest tenured Cowboys quarterback in team history, longer than Staubach, longer than Aikman.
I want me some glory hole.
So I wonder if this is what Jerry was thinking about when he said a few months ago that he was going all in. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, we have a. Let's see. We have a Harry. I'm not even going to touch that name. No, but with love, I might be forced to start Bryce Young in my Superflex league. Send help.
Sheesh.
Ouch.
And Cruz Garcia, would y'all trade Puka Nacua and who's that? JD5.
So Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels for Jalen Waddle. He says he has Allen. I would assume that's Josh Allen.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to do it, man. I mean, Puka Nacua, which leads us brilliantly into our next hot topic, which is the injury to Puka Nacua. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. The Rams have put him on injured reserve because he re-aggravated his knee. So I think this is what I would do. I would definitely do the trade, and then also pick up Demarcus Robinson on the waiver wire, so that he is basically basically an inside bolt that's ready to explode. Because the Rams need a number 2 wide receiver right now, but with Puka Nacua being hurt, they need someone to supplant Cooper Kupp, and I think Demarcus Robinson showed on Sunday night, when in the Rams' comeback attempt, that he can be a number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, so and I would also think that as far as for said going to be out for at least 4 weeks. That would be great pickups. And of course, I guess in Los Angeles, as far as fantasy, the best part of waking up is going to be Cooper in your cup.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Cruz. Thanks for your question. Thanks for watching us. Anybody out there got any fancy questions that you want to ask us now? Go ahead and let us know. We'll do our best to answer them. So yes, take the trade. I will take the trade.
Yeah.
So Puka Nacua will be out. He's at least 4 games. So so it looks like Cooper Kupp's going to be number 1 until Nacua comes back in. But I swear, Nacua last year, like I said, he impressed me with his numbers. I think he'll be all right when he comes back.
Yeah. Most definitely, but usually it's going to wide receivers. It takes like a couple of weeks after they come back to get back to normal production. So
right.
So I think with that, I think you gotta you gotta do it in a heartbeat.
Have another piece of injury news here. Looks like Jordan Love suffered an injury in the Packers game on Friday night. I do not see any diagnosis or prognosis or anything if he's going to be out for a short term or long term.
That Jordan Love's expected to miss around between 3 and 6 weeks after diagnosing an MCL sprain. So I think the Packers definitely dodged a bullet when it came to his. So when it comes to ACL, but the thing is, the head coach Matt LaFleur did say that Jordan Love will not go on injured reserve. So I think that there's going to be caution. Going to be cautious here, and I'm a little curious about that because if they did put Jordan Love on the IR, that would open up an extra roster spot, maybe for another backup quarterback. Say if they wanted to sign someone like Ryan Tannehill, I think Tannehill would make a lot of sense as a backup quarterback.
I have never really trusted Tannehill. I mean, he has his highs, he has his lows. Like there's in between. But yeah, I mean, if they're desperate enough to find a quarterback that's available, I guess they can go with Tannehill.
Yeah, I think that would definitely make a lot of sense. It's a lot of that.
Yeah. More injury news. Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. He suffered a sprained MCL and a bruised knee in the game Sunday against the Browns. But it doesn't look like he's serious. He's not exactly right now. As of right now, he is not ruled out this Sunday against the Saints.
Yeah, it's but I really don't know. Don't think it would be wise to get Jake Ferguson back, especially when you didn't throw the ball to a tight end after he left. So I think you're gonna want to get Luke Schoonmaker involved in catching catches in practice this week.
Yeah, so think about Schoonmaker, second-year player that the Cowboys have. He did quite well in his rookie season last year. Didn't get a lot of plays, but when he did, he produced. So he's going to be a young tight end that we'll be looking for. Another injury, and it looks like it's the return of the old Madden curse because, as everyone probably knows, Christian McCaffrey is on the cover of a Madden video game. And once again, it looks like McCaffrey is going to be held out yet again for this Sunday's game when the 49ers go to Minnesota to take on the Vikings.
Yeah, which I think is very smart, especially after the performance Jordan Mason had going with the hot hand ahead of their matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So I think you got to keep riding with Jordan Mason with that, but I think Kyle Shanahan described him as being day to day ahead of their game against Minnesota. So,
all right. And looks like the Bears rookie wide receiver Roma Dunze, he has a sprained MCL. He's listed day to day.
Yeah, and Roma Dunze only had like 3 targets on Sunday for the Bears, whereas DJ Moore and Keenan Allen each had more than double that. So I don't think he probably wouldn't be a good play anyway. Ahead of week 2, ahead of the week 2 game against Houston, that he'll be best served being on your bench for those of you who do that.
All right. One other story here on our hot topics. Very, very interesting. An interesting incident that took place right before the Dolphins game. Tyreek Hill was detained by police pregame. I think he was it a moving violation, or I guess he was speeding.
Yeah, it was a speeding violation. I think it was so that he was being unresponsive to police, and there was some really disturbing response, but by the police, the officer who put him in handcuffs, put him under arrest, is now on administrative leave. And I think it's going to be an investigative matter by the Miami-Dade County Police. So I was very concerned, but also it was fitting that when after Tyreek Hill caught that 80-yard touchdown on Sunday, that his celebration was in response to that with the handcuff celebration.
Oh yeah, when his teammate pretended like he was putting handcuffs on him. That was that was an interesting response there. So that's that was some interesting right there. I don't know if I've got any more hot topics, but we do have another interesting question from Shaka. Should I sell high on Cup? What would be a good 2-for-1 you'd be looking to get in return for him?
It's I think that's a good question. I would not sell Cooper Kupp, especially right now when that Stafford to Kupp connection was a thing of beauty, and especially with the Cardinals having a favorable matchup coming up against the Cardinals coming up on Monday night, on Sunday afternoon. I think you have to keep Cooper Kupp now. In terms of a couple of players that the types of players that maybe you might want back. Maybe if you can get someone like Jahmyr Gibbs, as a running back, if you can get somebody like Sam Laporta, if you can get somebody like Malik Neighbors, I think if you can get 2 of those guys, I think so you would consider that. Maybe you also maybe try a 3-for-1 trade with the suggestions I'm saying. So what would so I want to ask the 2 of you, like the types of players that you would want to get back in a Cooper Kupp trade in fantasy.
Wow,
it really depends on what needs you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
I would get probably a running back stash if you need running backs. Kind of depends.
Yeah, but running backs actually did really well this week, all across the board.
Yeah, I'd say they did. I have no idea how you could answer that question. I mean, I wouldn't sell
Yeah.
Cup
Maybe
at
like
all.
an Isaiah Pacheco type player.
Yeah, but
Someone like
Pacheco
an
makes
Isaiah
Pacheco makes a lot of sense.
Or maybe that young kid Jordan Mason. Wow, that's a very, very, very interesting question. I mean, but but it's just me. I would just sell Cup. I would just keep Cup right now because the connection with Cup and Matthew Stafford is pretty good. And of course, the Nakua injury, don't know how long that's going to be. It looks like Nakua, yeah, at least 4 games. So for at least 4 games, hold on to Cup, see what he does, and see if we can go from there. Oh, we got another question here.
Yes, we do.
How much would you guys spend on Jamel?
Jameson Williams is who this user is referring to.
Okay, Jamison Williams.
Is it? I mean, I don't I would not spend that much. I think great. He came off a great game, but I think he's going to be the number 3 target for the Lions going forward, behind Amon St. Brown and Sam Laporta. So I'm not as high on Jameson Williams as others, but I wouldn't spend too much and put too much effort into that because it feels like an overreaction after week 1.
Yeah, that might be an overreaction. So he said, "I lost Puka and got bad depth."
Yes, I mean, go. I mean, if Demarcus Robinson is out there, can't stress enough how much I love his fantasy value after this week.
Yeah. All else fails, go with Robinson. Cuckoo. So very interesting questions from our viewers. That's what we like to have. He's not, unfortunately.
Yes.
Okay. So he's not, so it looks like Robinson's not available in his league. So
yeah. But I think that there are several receivers that are that are going to be available even after the waiver wire period expires on Wednesday.
Right. And so, with that being said, we're going to go into our fantasy league here, looking at the results from our matchups, and we'll look ahead to next week. First of all, looks like Flynn did quite well against Dino, 157.48 to 110.36. Yeah, let me get that here on my get that on my screen here. Yeah, looks like the big wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. There we go. Oh, well, of course I'm looking at last week. Let's go to oh, all right, hold on. Let me expand my screen here a little bit. So Kyler Murray, good points for Flynn, 14.18, if I'm not mistaken. Saquon, big game for Saquon Barkley. Big game, 31.2.
Other highlights: big game from Alvin Kamara, a big game for Brandon Aubrey, big game for T.J. Edwards. And meanwhile, for Dino, Joe Burrow only had scored 8 points after being projected to have 19. His big contributors were Aaron Jones, who had a big game against the Giants, and A.J. Brown, who had that long touchdown catch for Philadelphia. But Travis Kelce, Brandon Ayuk, so they all underperformed on Sunday. I did have Ramondre Stevenson and Jaden Daniels on my bench, and while Dino had Tony Pollard and Jaden Reed on his bench, but I do not believe any of those would have made a difference.
Yeah, probably true. So Flynn gets his first victory of the season. Next, let's take a look at my matchup against David. And as you mentioned, it was last night's game that would actually prove the difference for David, nipping me right in the bud, 123.96 to 119.78.
Yeah, that's a tough way to lose, Timmy.
Yeah, especially when I had Aaron Rodgers because I was just so high on him. But it looks like I may have to do a double take on that. I did get a big 26.8 points off of Joe Mixon. J.K. Dobbins got me 22.9. Looking at my bench, well, I think I may consider putting Worthy into my starting lineup. 18.8 points. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not good. But it's nothing to sneeze at either.
I mean, 18.8 points in your NFL debut is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually very, very good indeed. Looking at David's numbers, 23 points from Devon Achane. 13.6 from Stevie Lamb, 11.46 from Dak Prescott.
Yeah,
Game scored for Buffalo at 13.3. And the highest score on the bench was Brian Thomas Jr. with 12.7.
Yeah, so but basically, David had to play the perfect game to beat you, and that's what he did.
And that's exactly what happened. Well done, David. If you're watching, well done, buddy.
Yeah, David, I think he starts 1-0 for the second straight year.
Yeah, that's not bad. Next matchup we want to look at here.
Yeah, so with Natalie, we're going to look at your matchup against Lucas, one that you won by 20 points. Yep. So let's go through it.
Take us through, Natalie.
Lamar Jackson was. Jackson was huge. He got the most points, I think, among all quarterbacks. But almost half of that came from his feet.
Yeah, and also imagine if that touchdown stood at the end, would have been
true. Yeah, that would have given me, I think, 29 points. Yeah, 29, maybe 30 points.
Close to 30 points.
Yeah, my only blemish was Marvin Harrison Jr. He didn't have a great debut, but then again, he was barely targeted.
Yeah, but also, do you see that Marvin Harrison Jr. was wide open a bunch of different times in that game? But I would not be discouraged by that performance at all if I'm a Marvin Harrison Jr. owner. I loved Marvin Harrison Jr. preseason. He's in one of my leagues, but you got big days out of Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Tyreek Hill. The Steelers defense helped out a little bit, but overall it was a pretty solid day in the office for you. And not much left behind on your bench. So meanwhile, Lucas was let down by Jonathan Taylor when we scored 11 points. Mark Andrews only gave him 3.4 points. Amon St. Brown, projected at 18.3, only gave him 5.3 points. So that was 13 points underperforming there. So I think those were the big things, and so but I do think but Lucas is going to be a contender at the end. Yeah, but this right here, Timmy, was the closest matchup of the entire week. We got Andrew beat nipped Casey by a little less than 1.5 points.
Wow.
And the 30 points from Cooper Cup were able to
crazy thing is had Brees Hall played the whole game, Andrew would have lost.
So, but the thing is that Brees Hall had 16 of the team's 18 carries.
Yeah, they pulled Brees Hall the last minute of the game. Yeah. And Brees Hall fumbled too. If it wasn't for the fumble, Andrew would have lost.
Wow. That's a great point.
Remember the fumble from earlier?
Yeah, in the first quarter. Wow, that's a bad way to lose on a fumble. But
I mean, Casey's only hope is stat adjustments. Stat adjustments are due midnight on Wednesday. If ESPN does anything, that's Casey's only hope.
But usually the stats, most of them usually go for defensive players in terms of tackles made, because that's where the points from Bobby Karake and Cameron Bynum who are on opposite sidelines on Sunday.
I noticed one thing from Andrew's list here. He had 2 quarterbacks on his bench. Each of them scored higher points than his starter, Jalen Hurts. CJ Stroud and who else was it? Geno Smith.
Yeah. He also had Bo Nix. He scored 11 points.
Nix scored 11. So. Is there a thing for having too many?
He's going to have to do something about his tight end, because there's a possibility Ferguson not play.
Ferguson has not yet been ruled out against New Orleans, but we're keeping tabs. So that's basically how that went.
Yeah. He does not have a backup tight end, so he's got to go to the waiver wire there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's going to do that. I think the only other matchup is talking about Adam and Alex. Yep. And it looks like Alex took this one, 135.98 to 111.14. This one there. 31.18 points from Josh Allen compared to only 15.4 points for Patrick Mahomes, which is wow, very interesting. Josh Allen almost doubled up there.
Yeah, Jordan Mason, 22.2 points, but it would not have been even if Alex did not make the switch, he still would have won.
Yeah, so you saw Baker Mayfield with Josh Allen 31-18, and his, I mean, look at that. Baker Mayfield was sitting on his bench 20. He could only start one quarterback, but look at that. Would have started Baker Mayfield. That's nice.
Close to 30 points. So I think Pitts will have the top 2 quarterback performers in fantasy this weekend, but he only start one of them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Adam had Patrick at 15.14, got 18.7 out of Deebo Samuel. Cowboys defense, special teams, he took them right before I could and got 23 points from them. Biggest score on his bench was the Dolphins defense special team, which only got him 13. So nothing really bad on the bench there. So
yeah.
So that's basically how our league went as far as last week.
Yeah. Yes. So now let's go ahead and look ahead to week number 2.
Week number 2. Yes, we'll start with who do I want to start with?
It's because I have the matchups up, so we'll start with David and Dino. David coming off a win, Dino coming off a loss.
David and Dino. We have a close projected total right now, actually. Initially, it's 123.8 for David and 129.3 for Dino.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because we do have another. We do have some questions that came in. So which defense / special teams do you prefer this week? The Colts, who play the Packers with Malik Willis as their quarterback, the Texans against Caleb Williams and the Bears, or the Jaguars going up against Deshaun Watson and the Browns. The Lions D is also on waivers. He currently has the Bills defense. So I think all three of those AFC South division defenses all have decent matchups. Caleb Williams is definitely not there yet because the Bears had to rely on defense to win that game against Tennessee. I don't think that's going to happen. You'll be able to get away with that against Houston. But so honestly, all three have favorable matchups.
Okay.
If I had to pick one, probably the Jags.
Maybe the Jags. I'm leaning toward the Texans. If I had to pick just one, I would take the Texans. But like you said, Flynn, all three of those teams would probably be
same
good for George. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question, George.
So we have another question. We have Zay Flowers, Jerome Ford, Drake London, or T. Higgins for your flex week 2. So let's see. Zay Flowers is going up against the Raiders. Jerome Ford is going up against Jacksonville. Drake London is going up against Darius Slay. I really like Drake London, and then T. Higgins going up against the Chiefs. So I could not circle Drake London fast enough for this.
I like Flowers in this one.
I would take London at number 2.
Yeah, for me, I'm going with Zay Flowers. I think he's going to get the most targets out of these guys.
You know what? I think you got a point right there. Zay Flowers is quickly becoming a great target for Lamar Jackson. So
yeah.
I would take Flowers.
Yeah, but I feel like the game
scripts. I'm going Flowers. I think he's gaining most targets.
Yeah, I feel like the game scripts for Baltimore and Atlanta are going to be different on Sunday because I think Baltimore is going to come out aggressive. I think Baltimore is going to pound the football on the ground because the Raiders' rush defense is a little suspect. Well, whereas for the Falcons, I think so that they're going to be in a game where they're going to have to throw the ball 30 times, 35 times if they're going to win a shootout in Philly. And so that's why I think Drake London is going to be better off as a flex.
All right. All in one show. Whatever your real name is. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your question.
Natalia and I were talking about something before the show, and I think this is a good question. That I think Natalia should lead the way with. Jake Ferguson is my only tight end. Should I drop Curtis Samuel for Kobe Parkinson?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, he's going to get a lot of targets, considering that Puka Nacua is going to miss time. So Parkinson is probably no worse than the number 3 receiver right now. So I would say go for it.
Which I think is wild, given everything. But let's go back to our matchups for week number 2.
Looks like all the check marks are over on David's side of the board, while Dino has the advantage for his quarterback. One more check mark for wide receiver with Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce, of course, best tight end. I'm looking at his bench players, and I noticed that Dino has a spot open.
Yeah,
there's an empty spot over there that he needs to fill up.
Yeah, let's see if Dino dropped anybody between now and the last time we talked, because I think that might be the explanation.
He might have.
Yeah,
he might have.
Yeah. Also, David's going to have to make an adjustment on his end because he currently has Puka Nacua listed as a starter, so he's got to change that.
Now he's going to have to change that. He's got Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, Jackson Smith, Najigba, Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas Jr.
And look at all these projections. So here's a question that I want to give both of you. Among the 5 receivers that you're seeing on this board, who should he start? Because he's got a lot of viable options.
Well,
Are you
of
referring to
course,
David's bench?
Yes.
yeah, with 5 receivers on David's bench. Cleveland, their defense wasn't that good, so I think Brian Thomas Jr. could be a good asset.
Yeah.
I probably would not start. I don't know about Keon Coleman going up against the Miami defense. Jalen Warren, he'd be a good but not great pick going up against the Denver defense.
So I mean, if he moves Devontae Adams into one of his wide receiver slots, that it would open up the flex for him.
Oh yeah, Devontae open up a flex. Deontay Johnson against the Chargers defense, and then you got Amari Cooper going against Jacksonville. My first choice is Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm personally leaning.
I'm kind of leaning toward.
I'm leaning towards Cooper.
Him.
I think he's good for a bounce back.
Yeah, I like Cooper too because I think Jacksonville's secondary is a little suspect. Especially after what you saw with how they were gashed by Miami. But now, obviously, a lot of the concern is whether or not Deshaun Watson can play anywhere close to his contract. So,
right.
Oh,
we have another question here. Full point PPR pick 4 this week. So he's got Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, Jameson Williams, and A.D. Mitchell. He says take 4 out of those 5. So I guess the question is which one would be the odd man out?
So we're picking about
this is a lethal roster here.
So basically this is among 6 players. So we need to leave out 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eliminate 2. I'm leaving out the last 2. Take the first 4.
I'm definitely leaving A.D. Mitchell on my bench. I'm also going to.
Yep.
How do you feel about Devontae Smith against Atlanta? That's right because the last one is between Devontae Smith and Jameson Williams. But I feel like the game script is getting more conducive for Jameson Williams than it will be for Devontae Smith because the Bucs are just coming off a game where they threw 4 touchdowns. The Lions are playing in a dome, and so I think it's a favorable matchup for him. Actually, I saw a really interesting fact with the Lions' schedule for the season. So through week 15, they only have 1 outdoor game.
Wow.
And then week 16 and 17, fantasy semifinals and fantasy championships, they're outdoors.
Very interesting statistic.
All right, so we have another question. Start Deontay Johnson or Brian Thomas this week? Oh.
I think we were just mentioning Brian Thomas Jr.
I'm not worried about either one of those.
Yeah, I'm going to go with.
If I had to pick one, I would say Brian Thomas because I think more upside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with Brian Thomas for the time being.
Slightly more upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, go with Thomas. They're Turtles. Thanks for your question.
Alrighty, so we have that matchup. I'm gonna go to my matchup against Andrew here. I'm projected at 141.3, while Andrew's projected at 137.7. Yeah, so it's gonna come down to the Monday night game because he's got 3 players going. With Jalen Hurts, Bijan Robinson, and Jake Elliott. Yeah, but I also have two players on Monday night with Saquon Barkley and Drake London. And yeah, I have Drake London and Devontae Smith. So two players that were just mentioned in that in that last sentence. So I
All right.
think so. I think we're gonna go with that. Um, so let's see what else compare and contrast. Cooper Cup against Arizona, so that he's going to have a big advantage on that front, and he's also got to hope for a bounce back performance from Chris Olave. In terms of a bench, he's filled with quarterbacks. While I'm gonna have I'm gonna have a rather intriguing choices for my flex. Devontae Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, Devin Singletary, Keenan Allen. But I know he has his projections a little bit lower, but I'm kind of leaning towards Devontae Smith here a little bit. But I'll make a decision. But I know what I'm going with. But if let's say if you were to be a fantasy owner and you had to choose between Devontae Smith and Ramondre Stevenson, what would you two be going with?
I'd be going with Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I'd probably
He'll
go
probably,
with
he'll probably get
Stevenson.
more yardage overall.
Yeah. So I think we're all seeing it we're all seeing it the same way. So let's go to let's go to Putnam's matchup against Lucas. And the two of them will be going head to head in our league, and of course you'll be listening to Alex Putnam and Lucas alongside Timmy in the Pain and Gain Pick'em segment tomorrow night.
That's right. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on the APIZZLE 90 channel. That's APIZZLE 90.
Yep. So right now, Lucas is projected at 125.1, while Pistol is going to have to make an adjustment because David Njoku is not projected to be playing for the Browns on Sunday. Right. So he's going to have to make an adjustment over there, and the Cole Kmet isn't exactly an enticing option right now because he's only projected at 4.2 points. So he's going to have to maybe swing a trade with somebody, or maybe pick up somebody on the waiver wire or free agency. So, but he's got Tua against the Bills. I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. So Putnam has Josh Allen going up against his team, and Putnam's opponent has Tua Tagovailoa, his quarterback.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Very, very interesting right there. I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it. I'm looking at that right now. Projected 21.1 for Josh Allen, while Tua is projected at 17.3.
Yeah. Most definitely. So we have that matchup going. We also, so now we're going to go into Natalie's and Tim's matchups, and we'll start with Natalie's matchup going up against, if I can get this out of here, going up against Casey.
All right. Lamar Jackson, he's got two good receivers for Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. Kyle Pitts at the tight end position with the Steelers defense special teams projected at 11.9 with them. Meanwhile, Casey's got Anthony Richardson. Brees Hall, good projection right there, going up against that Titans defense. Jameer Gibbs, good start against Tampa Bay. going Malik Neighbors against the Washington defense.
I love that matchup with Malik Neighbors on Sunday.
Malik Neighbors, yeah, you might do that. Looking at bench players here. If I was Casey, let's see here. He's got a receive Malik Neighbors. I like that. DK Metcalf. Who's he got? He's got Chris Godwin here. But he's got Rasheed Rice on his bench projected at 15.1 against the Bengals.
And Kyron Williams at 20 points. So Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Holy cow.
That is nice. That is nice.
Holy cow.
Great young running backs right there.
Yes, I mean, he's got to start Kyron Williams right away.
I think I would too. I would too. So, Casey, if you're watching, I think we're kind of leaning toward Kyron Williams over on this side.
Yeah. And then the last matchup,
I think I'm considering changing my defensive player.
So who are you looking at?
I was not impressed with Ernie. Yeah, I was not impressed with Ernie.
Oh, the Ernie laugh from Sesame Street.
I'd rather go with somebody named Dirt.
Yeah. I can't do that too well. So what's the last matchup? I guess it's me and Adam now.
Yeah, and it is the closest projections of the batch because the two of you only separated by 0.6 points in terms of projections.
Yeah. I got Stafford starting against the Cardinals while he's got Mahomes starting against the Bengals, which is a good matchup there. I decided to start Mixon again. Brian Robinson Jr., Garrett Wilson, my two tight ends. Laporta and I got Dobbins, got Sam Laporta. I just gotta stay with him. I think I might keep Zay Flowers on my starting lineup here. Let me take a look at my bench. I might. Xavier Worthy against the Bengals. I don't know. But
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough decision. If I want to pull one of those receivers in favor of Xavier Worthy. Looking at
my only question mark on here is J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
The way J.K. Dobbins looked, I think is very encouraging.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah.
Although
again, they're playing Carolina, so
and also, by the way, who lost Derek Brooks for the season with a season-ending knee injury, their best run stopper.
Oh, that's going to be a big loss for them. Looks like he's got Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, Michael Pittman Jr., Debo. He's got Debo. He's got George Kittle. Has Watson, Zaire Franklin. Looking at his bench, Brock Purdy, Roquan Smith, projected at 10.2, Deshaun Watson at 13.6. So right now I have a slight advantage, so I'm going to be keeping tabs on this matchup and still thinking I'm still thinking about maybe putting Xavier Worthy in my starting lineup. Don't think I can make that decision just yet. Well, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of information to ingest, and while while you're getting ready for your trivia questions, we have a lot of questions to answer. Starting with Mr. Out of the Box says Chase Brown or Brian Robinson Jr.
I think I saw someone in one. I don't know if it was in our league or another league
I'm leaning
that
more towards
dropped
Brian
Chase
Robinson
Brown.
Jr.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm kind of leaning toward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Brian Robinson Jr. is the RB1 for Washington.
Yeah. And he's got a good matchup against
Brian Robinson Jr. is running
Giants.
back 1, but here Chase Brown is running back 2.
Right. Yes. So now, what about Jackson Smith and Jigba or Deontay Johnson? Jackson Smith and Jigba going up against New England. Deontay Johnson going up against the LA Chargers.
Despite Deontay Johnson being the primary receiver, I got to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I see more upside here. I think he's going to take targets away from Tyler Lockett. And
agreed.
I mean, we don't know how good. Yeah, but I mean, I think New England's defense is gonna be an interesting X factor in terms of matchups because when are we gonna know how good New England's defense is? Because it's definitely not their defense that's weak point of their team. That's for sure. Because given that they only gave up 10 points to Joe Burrow led offense, that's why I would go with Deontay Johnson. On that. It's an 8-man PPR 2 flex. So far, Dak, Christian McCaffrey. Let's see. So remember, this is eight players, eight teams. So they'd be more stacked. HM, Marvin Harrison Jr., Debo, McBride, Connor, Monty, Brandon Aubrey. His bench is Christian Kirk, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Addison, Brock Purdy, and then Puka Nacua with the injury. So, I'm fine with that. What you think? Maybe Xavier Worthy over Monty. I think that's maybe where I would go. Yeah, and he says in another comment that's in my things. He is 1-0. He needs to make a move with Puka. He has both Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua who are both hurt. So, yeah.
That looks like I agree with Flynn. Good list. Would definitely consider putting Xavier Worthy in your lineup if you can.
Yeah. All right. So then we have that. So I'll read the comments for this one. 14 teams. A PPR league. He's 12th out of 14 in the waiver wire. So he's looking at Justice Hill, Tank Bigsby, Jeff Wilson. In terms of the running backs, Greg Dortch, Jalen McMillan, Alec Pierce. You have Johnson for the Rams, Justin Fields. So he has HM, but does he handcuff or make a couple of moves here? So, I would keep HN. I would try to make a flyer on Tank Bigsby, based on what he was able to do against for Jacksonville against Miami on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but there's more to this. His roster is Josh Allen, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, Rashee Rice, Michael Pittman Jr., Trey McBride. So should you be dropping Romeo Doubs for the Saints defense to pick up 2, or just save the waiver position or make one move for Wilson? So I would keep Doubs. I definitely would keep Doubs. I know it's a little iffy because of the Jordan Love injury, but I would leave it the way it is, honestly. Maybe if you Tank Bigsby for a bench spot, with that.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yep. So I think both of you had a couple of trivia questions for tonight. So let's get to them.
Okay. Here
Go ahead, Tim,
is
you go
my.
first.
All right. Time for trivia. See if you guys can get this one. Now, this is very interesting, and I did a lot of research to try to find the answer to this question. So here we go. Of course, this past Sunday, the Cowboys won their Week 1 opening game against the Cleveland Browns. Question is, who was the last team that the Dallas Cowboys beat in Week 1 that was not named the New York Giants? The last team the Cowboys beat in Week 1 that was not the New York Giants. And I will give you a clue. It was not an NFC East team.
So what it really narrows it down, because less than half of the schedule is against the NFC East. So that really narrows it down.
So, yeah, I know. It does narrow it down a little bit. So it's the last team Cowboys beat in Week 1 that wasn't the New York Giants and was not an NFC East team. So it wasn't the Giants, the Redskins football team, Commanders, or those Eagles.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it's been a while since then, so I'm thinking 08, 09, because I'm thinking of who did they play in 09? That year. Yeah, so we'll answer that. We will answer that question as usual at the end. But did we lose? Here's, I thought we froze the tally. But what was the tally's question?
All right, yeah. I got my idea for a question based on something that just popped up on my news feed. So this one might be easy, but we'll see. Mine's just going to be a simple one. Which team has the longest drought for winning a Week 1 game? So basically, in case in point, which team has the current longest losing streak as far as Week 1 games go? I'll help you guys out here a little bit. Think about which teams won in Week 1. So it's obviously going to be one of the losers. Think about the teams that won in Week 1, just straight up there. Oh, sorry. Think about which teams lost Week 1, rather. Pick from that group of people.
Okay.
All right. So
I'll mention this. The Giants have the second longest streak at 2016. Somebody has a streak that's even longer.
No, I thought the Giants in 2022. The Giants won Week 1, so it's not the Giants.
It did? Oh, I guess the graph I found was wrong then. The Giants was 2016.
They beat Tennessee. They were down 13-0 in that game, and then they came back and won. So.
All right. Well, hopefully the graphic I saw doesn't have misinformation on it. So we'll just have to hope for the best then.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, I believe it's time for starting some sit-ems. So
excuse me. I gotta use the restroom a little bit. I know this is a terrible time for that because I would be really interested to hear your starts and sits, but nature calls. But I'll watch the replay. So y'all go ahead. I'll be right back.
All right. So Natalia, did you have your starts and sits, or do you want me to go, or like dud, sleeper, stud, or whatever?
Not a formal start and sit, but I did have a stud from last week, a stud, a dud, and then my waiver wire choice. I mean, I already discussed picking up Kobe Parkinson from the waiver wire. I would suggest him because, obviously with Puka Nacua being out and people losing tight ends due to injury, why not? Why not take a flyer on him? Because David Njoku is going to be out. missed time, possibly Jake Ferguson. So you're already down 2 tight ends right there. So yeah, if you need a flex or a tight end, yeah, why not roll the dice with him?
Yeah.
And my fantasy star from last week was Isaiah Likely. Yeah, he came out of nowhere. Yeah, Mark Andrews was the clear number 1 tight end coming into the game, but he didn't really do well at all. I guess he's still kind of hurt from his car accident, so maybe he still needs time to roll into things. But yeah, why not? If you need a tight end, also maybe Isaiah Likely might be worth a look. And my dud from this past week was actually going to be Amari Cooper. I think he's a lot more capable of showing what he can do. He only got a few targets, but then again, the Cowboys defense is really tough. But Amari Cooper is due for a bounce back game, and this is his chance to prove himself. Yeah, that was about all I had. That was my my sitting dud from last week. Oh, sorry, my dud from last week, my star player from last week, and my guy you should consider adding to the waiver wire.
Since I could definitely definitely look at those, but I think in terms of where I'm going to be going with this, so I'm gonna go studs, sleeper and dud for this week instead of going from the down and up, but. So, but my fantasy stud for week 2 is got to be Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver for the New York Football Giants. Now, so obviously, all the talk about in New York is about Daniel Jones and him not being able to succeed this season. But I think Malik Neighbors is going to have a monster performance against Washington because all Daniel Jones does is beat Washington and nobody else. So I'm looking at 7 to 10 catches. I'm looking at 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. His first NFL touchdown for Malik Neighbors. So I definitely love that matchup. I think he's going to have a field day. My fantasy sleeper, and I know we're talking. This was someone who I mentioned before. Is DeMarcus Robinson for the Rams, because after Puka Nacua went down, he really stepped up and he really contributed to the passing attack, taking a little bit of pressure off of Cooper Kupp and some of the burden off of him. So I think he's going to step up and have a big day. So, but in terms of my fantasy dud for week number 2, I just got to go with I really am gonna go here with I'm gonna go with the Deshaun Watson against the Jaguars. Now Jacksonville is gonna be it's a vulnerable team nonetheless, but man, I think Deshaun Watson's confidence is shot, and I don't know if he's going to be the same type of same player that he's ever going to be. So it's like my dud is going to be Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns.
All right.
Nice picks there. I like that.
Okay, sorry I had to miss that. Well, anyway, I guess we have the starts and sits done. I guess we move on. I guess we move on to our week 2 picks in the NFL, I guess.
Yep, and we will get to them in momentarily, and here we go. So last week, so this was how we did. We Tim went 12-4 straight up. Natalie 13-3. I went 11-5. In terms of against the spread, Tim went 7-8-1. Natalie 9-6-1. Me 8-7-1. So we differ on the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. I think Josh Allen's going to be the best player on the field. So that's where I'm going to pick Buffalo to beat Miami. So that's where we're at. I think Jalen Waddle's gonna have a good performance as well, going up against the vulnerable Bills defense. But I think the Bills make some plays at the end when it matters the most. I'm going to take the Bills to win by a touchdown. Ravens and Raiders. Ravens are 9.5 point favorites. We know. I think this is going to be going to be a bounce back game for the Ravens. I think they're angry after how the Kansas City game transpired. We were all picking the Ravens to win and to cover, and that is my line.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so then we got the Chargers and the Panthers. We all think the Chargers are going to win and cover. So Dallas lane 6.5, I think, is a risky proposition, but Tim is gonna lay the points there, while we'll grab the points with the Saints on that one. The Lions are favored by 7 at home against Tampa. I think that's also a risky. 7 is a lot, but I think it's going to be a close game, which I think another close game the Lions will win, and both of you have the Lions covering. So now we got the Colts and the Packers. The Packers with Malik Willis, and Tim has an upset special in this one, thinking that Malik Willis is going to get a win here.
Sound that siren.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty good game here. 3.5 for Indianapolis. I think Green Bay is going to have another game here. It's going to be kind of close, but just taking the upset special, Green Bay over Indianapolis.
Yep, the Jacksonville is fair. I have the Colts winning, but I have the Packers covering because I do think the Packers have the coaching advantage in this one, even though I like Shane Steichen a lot. But Natalia has the Colts winning and covering. I have the Colts winning with the Packers covering, while Tim has the Packers winning the game as an underdog. So we all have Jacksonville winning, although Natalia's going to grab the points on this one with Cleveland. We are all picking the San Francisco 49ers to win and cover against Minnesota. I like I think you kind of like the matchup for Jordan Mason getting the workload on this one. I'm also looking at a big game for the Niners defense, because Sam Darnold going for the Giants defense to the Niners defense is a huge step up in competition. I think Seattle, New England was very tricky in my opinion, but I'm gonna pick Seattle. We all have Seattle winning and covering. We all have the Jets winning, although I have the Titans with the points. On this one, it's gonna be a little more high scoring than I think the things that I think people think. But with that, well, both Natalie and Tim have Washington. Well, I'm crazy enough to pick the Giants, but I think it's Daniel Jones against Washington. So I think with all of that,
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
I thought Rams Cardinals was the single toughest game of the week for me to pick. So, but and I think a lot of it has to do with the Puka Nacua injury, but I'm not misinterpreting this. I know that I've been high on Arizona all year, but in all offseason. But I think the Rams have the better coach, the better quarterback right now in this game. So I'm going to pick the Rams to win a shootout. We all have the Steelers winning and covering. Tim and I have the Bengals covering, but we all have the Chiefs winning. The Chiefs are 6-point favorites. The Bears and the Texans, that's Tim's point spread game of the week. The Texans are favored by 6.5 here. Yeah, he's grabbing the 6 points with the Chicago Bears, while Natalia and I have them winning and covering, while we all have the Philadelphia Eagles winning and covering as 6.5-point favorites. We're all laying the points here against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, the Giants and Commanders. I kind of saw this as probably the lowest scoring game of this week, so I'm sorry guys, I had to tag it my garbage game of the week. another thing I wanted to mention, we were talking about the Chargers and the Panthers. Of course, the Panthers, I think we mentioned earlier, they lost one of their best defensive players, so that give them the advantage. I got the Chargers 28-20, and I got the Chargers as my lock of the week. So that's a few extra notes on my end.
Yep, I think you're good on your end. The tally only has 2 underdogs covering, which I think is interesting.
Nice. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this Sunday. Of course, it all starts Thursday Night Football. I think, it's on Prime Video with Buffalo and Miami. Ending on Monday night with the bird game, Falcons against those Eagles, or as I like to call them, the Chickens. And of course, I get to call the Eagles. I call the Falcons. I call them the Turkeys. So it's the Turkeys against the Chickens. Although they both taste pretty good. I like turkeys. I like chickens. They both taste pretty good.
I just want to see that list I sent you about the insulting names. And
I don't know if I got that list. If you wouldn't mind, send it back to me.
It doesn't come. It's not one of the things for the Falcons. It's actually one they had for the Eagles. So they have chickens and turkeys. So
chickens and turkeys. Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely something to point out. But I think it's time to answer the trivia questions that we both had. So we'll start with Timmy's question.
Okay, so like I said earlier, Cowboys beat Cleveland in Week 1 this past Sunday. My question was, who was the last team that the Cowboys beat in Week 1 that was not the New York Giants? And the clue was it wasn't a team from the NFC East.
Okay, not a team from the NFC East. Okay, so that narrows it down slightly. I thought you said it was somebody from the AFC. Okay.
No.
So that changes things now.
Uh-oh.
This will be.
Now, I will say, Flynn did mention it was either 2008 or 2009.
Oh wow!
I'm trying to think of 2009. So that means in 2009, so that they played all the NFC South teams. They played all of the AFC West teams. So no, that was the rotations for that year. I'm going to make I'm going to make a guess and say the Carolina Panthers in 2009.
So Flynn says it was the Packers in 2009.
The Panthers.
Panthers in 2009. Okay. Tally.
Yeah. I think it's from that same division also, but I'm going to go with the Saints.
Oh, guys, you are in the right division. Unfortunately, both of you are wrong.
What?
It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, wow.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was September 13th, 2009. It was on the road at Raymond James Stadium. The Cowboys beat the Buccaneers in Week 1 by a score of 34-21.
Yeah, so I knew it couldn't be the Saints because that year the Cowboys beat the then 13-0 Saints in down the stretch of that season, so I knew it couldn't be them. But I was thinking Carolina or Atlanta or Tampa.
Yeah. And the starting quarterbacks were Tony Romo and Byron Leftwich.
Is Byron Leftwich still Jacksonville's offensive coordinator?
I think he is a coach or assistant coach somewhere. Let me look that up. Byron Leftwich.
No, he's not employed by anybody right now.
So he's basically a free agent coach.
Yeah.
If he wants to come back and coach somewhere. So the answer was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2009. So Natalia, let's get to your question.
Okay, yeah, I had to do some research just to make sure I didn't get false information for the actual correct answer, and turns out the answer is correct. So with that being said, who currently has the longest active drought in consecutive losses in week 1? But I'll help you guys out here a little bit. Think about all the teams that lost. Think about all the teams that lost in week 1. Pick from one of those 16 teams.
Yeah. So looking at the list of the guys, like the teams that lost.
Think about everybody who lost in week 1. It's going to be one of those teams.
I would not think it was the Niners.
Yeah, one of them, their drought is still continuing. There's one in week 1, so it wouldn't be them. Think about the teams who lost.
Right. So, it's not. I know it's not Green Bay, and I know it's not Baltimore, and I would not think it would be Denver. I wouldn't think it'd be Denver. I think my pick for the longest active losing streak in week 1, Las Vegas Raiders.
All right. Tim has the Raiders. What do you say, Flynn?
I mean, I'm thinking of all the teams. I don't remember the last time the Colts won a week 1 game. I think they tied one year, but I think that was it. So I'm going to go with the Colts here.
All righty. All right. One of you is right. And let's see. I'm gonna touch the screen of the person who is correct. It's Flynn.
Oh,
2013. And counting.
Wow, 2013. Wow.
2013. And who was it? The
Colts. I'm not sure. I don't have a statistic yet. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to see if I could find a stat. 2000. Yeah, so it's 2013 and counting.
Wow. From 2013 and this. So that's 11 straight years.
2012 then was the last one. Yep.
So it's 10 straight or 11 straight?
Oh, hold on.
Well done, Flynn.
Okay, so it must be 2013 then. Okay, so I looked at. Let's see. Hold on here. I mean, 2013, they also lost. Hold on. Well, I just want to make sure I didn't read something wrong. Okay. Hold on, actually might be even longer because it shows 2012 and 2013. They both lost regular seasons. Maybe it was 2014 then? Hold on.
And y'all out there want to definitely
12,
make sure about this one.
13. Yeah, maybe it was 2011 then was the last time they won one. Let me see.
Let's see if I can find up some information.
Trying to find their last win. It actually might even be longer than what it said because I went to 13, 12, and 11. It shows all losses.
Hmm.
So far, I already went to
I'm
14,
not
13, 12,
getting.
and 11. It shows all losses. Another loss. Let's see. Actually, it might be even longer. Hold on. I'm working on it. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something myself.
Okay. Looks like it was 2009 was the last time they won a week 1 game against the Jaguars.
Wow. That's that seems like eons ago. But I'll definitely have to look that one up. So many years in a row of losing a week 1, but wow. But anyway, I think that's going to bring this week's episode of Fantasy Football Fever to a close. Wow, this was a very, very great show that we did. And I hope you guys taking some of our tips, watch your waiver wires, do all that. You may have to make some trades, whatever you got to do. Flynn, Hooked on Sports, twice a week now.
Because of course my episode out on Monday was focused on the impressive and disappointing quarterback performances. I also tapped in on other topics and a little quickies on the NBA and so with Jamal Murray's contract extension. Got into that. I got into the playoff races that matter across Major League Baseball and then of course the U.S. Open and the bright future for Americans in tennis. So I got into those.
Yeah. So y'all be sure and just check out Hooked on Sports with John Flynn now during the NFL season twice a week. Wherever you can find your podcast, just look for Hooked on Sports. And John Natale, of course, our commissioner, we'll be seeing him again next week on the show. We'll be seeing John Flynn. Don't forget, tomorrow night, over on the A-Pizzle 90 channel, I'll be joining Alex and Lucas for the Pain and Game Pick'ems. So y'all be sure to watch out for that. So I guess we can go ahead and put a bow on this thing. Thank you all for joining us. Of course, that there is John Flynn. That over there is John Natale. I am Tim McClellan. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a great week. Enjoy all the games. Thanks for watching. God bless you all. And as always, be a good sport. See ya.